about retirement, and do well to ask me a lot of questions. I'll be looking forward to it. We are going to go briefly through what retirement is, why retirement planning is important, retirement income sources, how much is enough, the retirement process, planning process, and other retirement consideration. I'm sure you see yourself somewhere in the picture that is showing right now. Between the time we are born to the time we die, there are so many life events that happen to us. Some we plan for, some we don't. But one of the major considerations that we fail to plan for is retirement, which is what is highlighted in red. So I'm sure you may be asking yourself, what is retirement? I'm sure all of you have an idea what retirement is. But I just want to touch briefly on what it should be. Retirement basically is a period where you cease to work for money. It doesn't mean that you may not work, but your main focus for working is no money. Probably you are just working to stay active and to help society. It's also a period to mark sober reflection, a time to enjoy life, a period to give back to society. Also, this is the time where some start pursuing unfinished life. Prince, can you kindly mute your mic? I think it's, if that's, okay, thank you. So retirement is also a period for pursuing life's unfinished goals. And that's how come you see those who plan well use their retirement to take on interests that they did not have the time to do when they were actively working. We also have to remember that this stage in our life has its financial implication, and we have to prepare for it because unfortunately or fortunately, there's a scarcity of resources, which means that we have to be deliberate about the plan we put in place so that by the time we go on retirement or when we go on retirement, we can either maintain or improve our standard of living. So let's kindly watch this video shortly. I'll ask some questions after that, so please listen. I hope we can hear.
So we can't hear the audio.
You can hear the audio?
Yes.
Yes, so kindly go to your listen and share the sound.
My words, please.
If you can kindly click on the share your screen, you see that there's an icon there saying that share sound.
Oh, okay. I'm not seeing it, but.
Yeah. There are some 3 dots on your screen. Just where you see it over there.
Okay. Okay, great.
Sure.
6 cities. Goat's meat. Auntie Mary. Me for 10 cities. Willie 6 cities. Goat's meat. 12 cities. And chicken thighs. Fat one 8 cities.
Okay, right away.
Sauce Keleke. Payday is good. Add beer 1 wine.
In the hustle and bustle of life, retirement considerations
next year
are often relegated to the bottom of our collective financial agenda until retirement hits you unprepared. Living on a meager retirement income can be traumatic and stressful as you can no longer afford to live life the way you want.
Can I have fufu 50 pesos? Goat's meat 1 CD and chicken thighs small 50 pesos.
Hey, please, we don't sell adule and achomo here. Go to the next store.
Okay, so what do we see from this video? If I can get 1 or 2 responses before I proceed.
I think from the video, we saw a man who, in his prime, took retirement planning as a joke, wasn't serious about it. And I think age had to catch up with him, and now things became tougher for him, and he has to readjust his economic conditions as pertaining life.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Is there any other person who would want to say something they saw that hasn't been said already? Okay. So we realize that this story we are seeing is real, and we keep on seeing it over and over again. People working in very good jobs, and they go on retirement, and it's as if it was never them. As you could see, when he was working, he was living life was quite good. I mean, going to the choba, ordering all that meat and chicken. We know in Accra, these things are not cheap. And not thinking about tomorrow. How do I maintain this lifestyle when I go on retirement? And it's something that happens a lot, hence the reason why we are having this discussion. Apart from the fact that one of the challenges retirees face in Ghana is low pensions, which was highlighted in the video we just saw. There are also a number of challenges that retirees face that we must consider as we think about our future. I'll talk more about low pensions later in my slides, but let's talk about inflation. We know what inflation means is the general prices and general increase in the prices of goods and services. And I'm sure if you're in town, you're feeling the heat from all the increments that has been going on, especially with fuel and with food. And it's not different for anybody who retires in Ghana. You buy the same things at the same shop, and there's no special shop for retirees. So these are some of the challenges that you face. Unfortunately, the pensions don't increase at the pace that these prices increase. So it becomes a challenge. That means that if you don't plan for it, yes, maybe in the beginning of your retirement, you may have it easy, but as time goes on, you may not be able to maintain the standard of living. Then we have healthcare costs and long-term care. So for most of us, when we are sick, we go to our company, either they have a hospital we can go to, or there's a health insurance or some arrangement to reimburse whatever we spend on healthcare. When you go on retirement, at least for most employers I know, that cost becomes your burden. You have to take care of that cost. And that is something that we need to think about. I remember this year, my mom telling me how she had to spend about 18,000 just on her eyes. And so these things are real. Also long-term care, as you grow older, there's a tendency that you may not be able to do some of the things that you could do on your own. And sometimes it could be medical, sometimes otherwise, but you may need some additional support. You may need a nurse to come in or someone to help you do the simple things you used to do. And all that comes at a cost. It's not free. And these are things that we need to think about. Also longevity. A lot of us go to church, we pray for long life. We are always wishing people, that they live long on their birthdays. What does that mean? That basically means that when you retire, you need more money for that period that you'll be alive. The longer you live after retirement, the more money you need. So long life is good, but we need to look at how do we maintain a decent lifestyle if we're given a long life. Also volatility. I'm sure if you were investing in T-bills in Mohammed's time, you would have been seeing some 25% and all that. And now, what is the T-bill rate? The last I checked, it was about a bit above 12%. So that means that, example, if you were a retiree and you had put your money in a T-bill and you were expecting a certain amount of money, interest rates go up and down. So your expectations may not be met, and that poses a risk. Now, let's remember that as we are working, I don't know how old you are, but as you start work, okay, there's something called human capital. Human capital is basically your ability to earn and save money. And the thing is that every month you take your salary, that human capital diminishes. Every year you celebrate your birthday, that human capital diminishes, as in there are fewer months for you to take your salary. We also have to realize that within every salary is a seed. I'm sure you may have heard this before. It may sound a bit cliche, but within every salary is a seed. And that seed we are supposed to sow for our future, because human capital will diminish over time. No matter how, even if you have your businesses or whatever, there's a point where you would not be able to work anymore. Now that seed you sow is what will take care of you during those years that your human capital is low. So that is why it's important that every month we earn an income, we sow a seed towards our future, and that builds our financial capital, which is what we'll feed on when we go on retirement. So we've spoken about a lot of things, and I'm sure by now you are convinced on why we need to plan our retirement. Now let's take a little bit of time to talk about pensions in Ghana. What is the current arrangement? What do they used to be? Okay, so before the 3-tier pension scheme, which I'm sure you have all heard about, when you go on retirement in Ghana, what happens is that, or before retirement, when you are working, your employer would contribute 12.5% of your basic salary and take 5%, and then all will be remitted to SSNIT. When you go on retirement, SSNIT is supposed to pay you a monthly pension and then a lump sum, and that was the arrangement. However, there were some labor agitations, and as a result, the president requested for a committee to be set up, to look at this whole pensions law again and look at whether we could, change things, and look at what is going on around the world, as well as our own social cultural setting, our own setting as a country, and see how best we can come out with laws that will work or improve the wealth of the retiree in Ghana. So that was what was replaced with what we call the 3-tier pension scheme. The 3-tier pension scheme came to replace the old SSNIT scheme. Now, prior to the 3-tier pension scheme, there was no regulator. SSNIT was the boss. They were in charge of everything. But with the advent of this scheme, the law gave the NPRA, which is the new regulator, the authority to regulate the whole pensions industry, SSNIT inclusive. Now, we have 3 baskets under this 3-tier pension scheme. The first is SSNIT as we already know it, but instead of the 17.5% going to SSNIT every month, it has been reduced to 13.5%. So every month, your employer will take 13.5% and send it to SSNIT on a monthly basis. But before I go into that, for your mandatory pension, every month your employer will take 13%. They used to contribute 12.5%. It has been increased to 13%. And then they'll take 5%, 5.5% from your salary. It used to be 5%. So an additional 0.5 has been added. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I wasn't seeing. Okay, sure. So an additional 0.5% has been added to both the employer and the employee. So this comes up to 18.5, out of which the 13.5 I mentioned is remitted to SSNIT on a monthly basis. Now, as I said, initially SSNIT used to pay a monthly pensions and a lump sum. They are no longer going to be paying a lump sum. They are no longer going to be paying a lump sum. They are only supposed to be paying monthly pensions. However, I don't think there's any old person here. However, if you were working before 2009 or 2010, when this law took effect, SSNIT is supposed to pay you a past credit. So what happened to the tier 2? What happened to the lump sum? I'll come to that. Also, let me mention that SSNIT is a social security and national insurance trust. So what they run is a defined benefit. If you know how long you're going to contribute to SSNIT for, and we know your best 3 years salary, we can quickly be able to calculate what your pensions will be. It's defined. It's as simple as that. Okay, great. So your lump sum was hived off into what we call the tier 2. But the arrangement is very different from what it is with SSNIT. Under the tier 2, that is where the private players come in. So we have 3 private players. We have the trustees, we have the custodians, and then we have the fund managers. Okay, so the trustees are like Axis. We own the scheme. We normally do the marketing of the scheme, the operations or administration when it comes to the scheme, but we don't do investment. We also don't keep money. You wouldn't come to Axis and see that there's a cashier, receiving people's pensions. No, that doesn't happen. So even though the scheme is ours, Axis pension plan is ours, Cedar pension plan, Cedar Provident Fund is ours, and it's our product. We don't take the monies into our Axis account as a company because that duty has been separated. So it's important that we remember that. Then we have the fund managers. Fund managers are basically organizations that are licensed by SEC and the National Pension Regulatory Authority to take investment decisions on behalf of the scheme. So remember that this is what they do day to day. So they are just taking investment decisions on behalf of the scheme. Also remember that with pension funds, because they are people's last resort, there's an investment guideline that states how the funds should be invested. As in, they are given maybe Government of Ghana securities. You can invest up to 60% equity. You can invest up to this percent. So that is provided. So within the percentage that has been given, you can choose how much you want to do. And that is how it works. Then we have the pension fund custodian, and they are the people that the monies go to. These are universal banks, like Zenith Bank, GCB, the regular banks that we know, but they are both licensed by BOG and NPRA to do this kind of business. And they keep the assets of the scheme in custody. What that means is sometimes you take your gold watch or a will or something to the bank to keep for you. It's the same way pension funds are kept. However, there's a time frame, I think 48 hours, within which these monies should be invested. So that is tier 2 for you. We have 3 different players. The roles have been segregated, all to ensure security of your funds. Now, unlike SSNIT, tier 2 is a defined contribution. It's a pure investment. So whatever you contribute plus your investment gains, all losses is what you are taking home. It's as simple as that. Okay, so when you listen to me, tier 1 and tier 2, yeah, we still have monthly pension lump sum. What really makes it different? Now, the law has provided an additional basket for us to contribute towards our retirement. And this basket is what we call the tier 3. And they are saying that to make this even more interesting and juicy, we are going to allow you to contribute up to 16.5% of your basic salary pre-tax. That means that your income tax reduces by taking advantage of this provision. And, this can be done in a provident fund or a personal pension. Provident fund are normally employer facilitated. So normally the employer will do so for the employees. They'll normally match them up. So, bring 10%, we'll bring 6.5%. We add it together and contribute on behalf of our employees. It's normally seen as a way of retaining good staff. Especially in industries like banking, everybody is doing provident funds. So you can't say as a bank that you wouldn't be attractive, or you wouldn't attract the kind of stuff that you want. So this is how a provident fund is. It's sometimes seen as an end of service benefits. It all depends on the vesting rules, which the law allows the employer to set to guide when members can withdraw from the scheme, and it differs from company to company. For example, in my company, you can't withdraw till you leave the organization. However, you have companies where every 5 years you can take, every 2 years you can take. It differs from company to company. Also, the tier 3 can be used as a collateral to take loan, so that should you not pay, the bank will just take that money. If you pay to, at least you have that loan, you probably get it at a cheaper rate because it's less risky. We place a lien on your account. Once you are done paying, that lien is released. Also, the law allows you to make partial withdrawals or full withdrawals, but always remember that if you are making pre-tax contribution, taking it before 10 years, you have to pay government back taxes of 15% flat, regardless of your income or your tax bracket. Also remember that if the tier 2 and tier 3, you can use to take your first primary mortgage on your first house. So if you are yet to have a house and you have a decent enough tier 2 and tier 3 balance, you can go to some of these mortgage houses, and instead of giving you 80% of the value of the house, if your tier 2 and 3 balance is good, they'll give you 100%. And then, as I said, at the end will be placed on your tier 2 and 3 accounts. When you are done, it will be released. And so you would kill two birds with one stone, be able to get your house and also be able to build your pension funds. And when you retire or when you're leaving an organization, these payments are made to you as a lump sum. Also remember that the personal pension, it now gives you an individual an opportunity to save towards your retirement. So you can also take advantage towards on the 16.5% tax savings. And the personal pension is there so that if you are not satisfied with what your employer is doing, or you feel like you need to do more, you can take advantage of that. Apart from the sources of income that has been provided under the 3-tier pension scheme, there are different sources of income that I hear people talk about: businesses, rental income, children or family investments. I'm sure there are some other things that come up in your mind. I would normally say that if you want to start a business, most of the time I encourage that you do that before your retirement, because I'm sure you know business is risky, especially here in Ghana. So it's good to start when you're receiving some money, so that by retirement you would have established yourself and it will be bringing in some steady stream of income. Starting a business during retirement could or could not go. It's quite risky, so it's not something I would advise unless you have something to fall back on in case the business does not work. Rental income is also good, but rental income may not be as good as we have made it to be. It's also always important that location matters. If you go and build a mansion in Sawum, you'll be very appalled at how many years you probably won't be able to break even in your lifetime. So before you go to acquire a property, make sure you see a professional. I remember the last time seeing some building I like, saying, oh, if I had money, I would buy this building. And I was told it would take 21 years to break even. So sometimes things are not as they seem. See a professional and get advice. Children and family, this is a major issue in Africa. Black tax, a lot of the reason why young people are struggling financially, which is even leading to theft and all sorts of things. I mean, the implications are huge. I don't know why you will plan to rely on your kids. I think we are all young enough, so let's advise ourselves. If you grow up and by chance your children are doing well and they decide to support, fine. But don't plan your retirement with your children's money as part of your retirement package with the excuse that you invested in their education. That was your responsibility. And so for those of us who are religious here, the word of God says that a man leaves an inheritance for his children and children's children. Not the little the children has, the man will go and take. No, that's not what it says. So if you want to take any advice from that, investments are good, and as much as possible, the more investments you have, the better. So we've spoken a lot, and I just want to zoom in into SSNIT and how it's calculated, because for a lot of Ghanaians, SSNIT is their major source of retirement income. So let's just spend a bit of time talking about SSNIT and how it's calculated, and I'll spend time talking about early retirement. Okay, so let's assume you are Mr. Kwesi Mensah. You are 60 years and you're going on retirement. You have contributed to SSNIT for the past 30 years, so 360 months. Your last salary or your terminal salary, basic salary, was 1,500 Ghana cedis. Now, SSNIT takes into consideration your best 3 years' salary when they are calculating your pensions. So when you check your statement, you see that every year they've calculated the total salary. So even on your statement, they show you as at now what your best 3 years salary is. So they'll take the best 3 years salary and divide it by 3 to give them the average of your best 3 years salary. So that's one of the factors they take into consideration. The next thing they take into consideration is how long you have contributed to SSNIT or the scheme. Remember that to have access to pensions in Ghana, you should have contributed for a minimum of 15 years. That is 180 months. Every additional year you do earns you more in terms of the percentage, or what we call the pensions right. Now, for the 15 years, the minimum pension right you receive is 37.5%. The maximum you can get is 60%, and that is for contributing for 35 years and above. As I said, you get 37.5% for the minimum, and every year you do in addition, you get 1.125% more. So remember that Mr. Kwesi Mensah had done 30 years. So the first 15 years, we have the 37.5. The second 15 years, we have 15 times 1.125. We add that, and that is 54%. So 54% of what? They will calculate 54% of the average of your best 3 years salary and divide it by 12, because the 54% times the average will give you your annual pension, but we earn pensions monthly, so we divide it by 12 and we arrive at your pensions. So Mr. Kwesi Mensah will be taking 736 Ghana cedis home. Remember, he was earning 1,500 cedis, so his income replacement ratio, or his income, has been replaced by 49.12%. In the same situation, in the same scenario where Mr. Kwesi Mensah decides to take an early retirement, all factors or all things being equal, even though he has still contributed for 30 years, still has the same average for the best 3 years salary, he's retiring 5 years earlier. So he's going to suffer something we call reduced pension. For someone who is 55, that means you take 60% of what you should have taken if you were 60. That's how come you see a smaller estimated pension right, which is 60% of 54%, and you end up getting 442, which replaces your income by 29.47%. What this 60 says is that if you haven't planned for your retirement, if you don't have additional sources of income, early retirement should just be a dream for you. So if you plan to retire early, please make sure that you are putting your house in order so that your retirement can be enjoyable. Now, remember that these calculations are on basic salary, not allowances. A lot of us are enjoying makeup allowance, transport allowance, clothing allowance, all these things. It's just on your basics. So when you are negotiating for salaries, don't be too interested in taking a big take home at the expense of your future income. Make sure that your basic salary is decent enough so that when your pensions are being calculated, it's also decent. Now, this is just a few statistics to bring to home what actually people are taking. And this is as at 2019. We had 78% of retirees taking less than 1,000 Ghana cedis, and just 1% of pensioners taking more than 5,000. And all this is as a result of people not paying on high salaries. All comes to bite them later. And we have just a small percentage of the informal sector. When I say informal sector, I don't just mean market women. I mean self-employed people who are not paying their pension. So these are things that we have to consider, especially for those of us who are self-employed in this call. In 2021, the situation improved. We had 53% earning less than 1,000 Ghana. So you have to remember that as the years go by, salaries increase. So this would have, an impact on the kind of pensions that are taken. And the average pensions that is being taken right now is 900 cedis. So as you see all these figures, I want you to walk in these people's shoes. The question is, how are you able to maintain your standard of living? Globally, financial planners say that you should have at least 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income to be comfortable when you go on retirement. So if you are earning 1,000 Ghana cedis, you can target between 700 to 800 Ghana cedis and you'll be cool. However, in Ghana, because of our social-cultural setting, it's recommended that we do 100%. And this was recommended by one of the people who was very active in enacting the new law that the 3-tiered pension scheme was part of those who were, consulted to bring about the new law. So why did he say this? Well, outside, I mean, it's more of the nuclear family. Once your kids hit 18 or 21, they are gone, they are living their own life. Here, it's not so. You may be taking care of extended members. You may become an ibusia, paying every funeral. You're expected to go and pay something. Now you have all the time. You don't have any excuse to get. For weddings, you're expected to go naming ceremony, and all these things are not free. They come at a cost. And I remember my grandma having to pay the school fees of, some of her family members when she was older, and this is the real situation in Ghana. Now, we can either decide to look at a percentage of our pre-retirement income, or you can also decide to look at a fraction of your current expenses, because for some of us, we spend really lower than we earn. So you can also look at it as a fraction of your current expenses. So taking all this into consideration, I'm sure by now you're thinking, okay, so Mimi, all this talk, what can I do about my retirement? What can I do so that in the next 30 years, 20 years, when I retire, I will retire comfortably? Number one, it's important to set financial goals. Very important. If you sit in a trotro and you don't know where the trotro is going, I'm sure you end up nowhere. You waste your time. We all need to know where exactly we are going so that we know the vehicles that we need to take to help us get there. A retirement goal can be the ideal lifestyle. When you think about retirement, what comes to mind? Do you want to be traveling all around? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? You can also look at it as your, in comparison to your current budget or your current expenses or your current income. What percentage of your income would you want to replace? As I have already mentioned to you, it's important to also take into consideration capital expenses. Some people want to buy. I had a retiree who retired quite well with a lot of money, and he bought himself a Benz as he went on retirement. Those things take away. So you need to consider all that when planning for your retirement. Another thing is to evaluate your financial situation. So now you know your goals and you know that, okay, I want to go to Achimota, but where are you moving from? You need to know your current financial situation. And two things you need to know is your net worth. Your net worth basically being your asset minus your liability. Because of time, I can't go into it, but I'm sure Peter can help on a later day to talk about what net worth is and how we can calculate it. Another thing you need to know is your cash. We need to know is your cash flow, your inflows and outflows. So the reason why we need to know your net worth is when people are going on retirement, they are owing. Normally, the banks will take out what they are owing from their assets or from their pension funds, and the rest is what they can live off. So we need to know what you can live off, the assets that you can fall back should you retire today. And it also gives us an idea of your financial situation and how we can help you better it as we plan towards your retirement. Also, your cash flow will give us an indication, income situation and your expenses. Is there something we can cut, to make room for your savings towards your retirement and all important. Once you have this in place, it's important to assess retirement prospects, and this will your SSNIT statements, your Tier 2 statements, your Tier 3 statements come in. In fact, in Axis, we have a pension planner. So we are able to put all these figures into a pension planner to know, based on how things are going, you are not likely to retire well. Based on how things are going, you are likely to retire well. So keep at whatever you're doing. So this is also very important. Once you see a gap between where you are and what you are already doing, there's a need to do something extra towards your retirement. And this is where you set your pension plan in motion, and you do it as soon as possible, because you, if you wait too long, you don't benefit or you lose out because of compound interest. Last but not the least, a lot of us just like to invest and leave things to chance. I remember someone telling me he bought shares, and I think when he retired, went to check on the shares and realized it was worth nothing. No, whatever you invest for is your hard-earned money. So make sure that you are checking your statement. Make sure, and if you have a financial plan, you realize your financial planner will be taking this information on a regular basis to see whether you are getting towards your goal or there's a need to change some of the strategies. So this is also very important. Now, how can your little contributions I've talked about make sure that you retire comfortably? So assuming you have 30 years to go on retirement, and Ghana cedis regularly. Let's assume you don't even increase it. You do 100 Ghana cedis regularly, assuming an interest rate of 18% over the period, over the 30-year period. You are able to retire with 1.4 million. At least you'll be a millionaire before you die. I'm sure you may be thinking about inflation. That's why we normally advise that income increases, you also increase your contributions to also take care of inflation. Now, how can this improve your retirement prospects? I'll take you through a brief calculator. Let me do this very quickly. Okay, so we have a calculator. Let's assume that we took home this 1.4 million I'm talking about. Okay. This is 14 million. 1.4 million I'm talking about. Let's assume that you're being conservative then, so 16% interest rate. It means that every year, every month, we can pay you an additional 18,000 just from your returns. If you want your lump sum to be growing while you are also drawing down, we can even pay you 14,000, but your money will be growing as well. So this is just to give you an idea, you know, of how the investment works. I hope you can see my screen, I think. Okay. Okay, can we see my screen?
Sure, we can see your screen.
Okay, so let's watch this short video again.
Okay.
We asked people a question. How much money do you have in your pocket right now?
I have $40.
53.
21.
Do you think the money in your pocket could make an impact on something as big as your retirement?
Not a chance. I don't think so.
Probably not.
It's hard to imagine how something so small can help with something so big. But if you start putting that toward your retirement every week and let it grow over time, for 20 to 30 years, that retirement challenge might not seem so big after all.
So what did we pick up from this video quickly?
I think from the video, the man was actually letting people understand that it doesn't matter how big the money is. What matters is you investing over a long period of time and being consistent at what you are investing in. And with time and consistency, your investment will grow.
That's very great. I think you've overlearned the lesson. Good job. Okay, so as simple as you said, the time is of essence. And as young people, the most valuable thing we have now is time. Sometimes you hear a lot of people saying, I don't have enough money. I don't think we would ever have enough money. It's because the way things are, if you study the cons, our needs are insatiable. So it's just about putting it in your mind that this is something that I need to do for myself. Now we're talking about, the financial implications of retirement, but other things you may need to consider are your health. Remember that the things you do today may have an implication on your retirement. So with health, make sure you're eating well, you're drinking water, so that you avoid certain diseases which may cost you, first of all, it may cost you the ability to save towards your retirement. And when you go on retirement, it may cost you so much money to be able to deal with those diseases. Also exercise and stay active, and take very care of your mental health, manage stress, and try and be at peace with everybody if you can. It's also important to start thinking about how you'll be taking care of your healthcare when you go on retirement. So if you have funds for healthcare or some health insurance at retirement, that will really help. And I'm sure Prince touched a bit on that. Social life. And for the anti-so people like me who are trying to repent, this is very important. I remember a retiree sharing with me how when he went on retirement, he realized how important his wife was. Initially, he used to control the stations that they watch. But as he went on retirement, he just gave the wife the remote control, knowing that now if he doesn't treat her well, he will suffer. So this is a good time to, build strong relationship, healthy relationship with spouse, friends, and family, so that when you go on retirement, people won't leave you alone, and you also feel like you're given value and your value. That's very important. All students association, retirees association, religious groups, these are things that we shouldn't take for granted. Let's build these relationships so that they will benefit us eventually. Also accommodation. Everyone in Ghana wants to own a home, and it's good to own a home, but let's consider the kind of accommodation we want when we go on retirement. As much as possible, don't go and build a mansion and when your children will be leaving. Try and build something that you can easily maintain, and realize that having your own accommodation also comes with maintenance and renovation, and these are things that you should consider. If you want to rent too, you have to consider the cost of rent. And in Accra, rent is very, high. So these are things that you need to be thinking about. If you want to be living with family, think about the nuances and settle on what works for you. But one thing I don't encourage is waiting till retirement before thinking about where you would live. That's where you have retirees take their lump sum, all their lump sum, put it in housing. The lucky ones are able to finish but have no resources to fall back on in case of any emergencies or any support. The unlucky ones are not able to finish. Also, occupation. Make sure that you're you get some hobbies. I'm speaking to myself. Actually having a discussion with a retiree today who was telling me that, retirement sucks. And we're actually having a discussion about different things that you could do to make it more enjoyable. So to start looking for hobbies so that when you go on retirement with this long vacation, you have things to do. If there's business and consultancy you want to do, it's also a good enough time, especially if you are not doing it for financial reasons, or you are not taking too much financial risk with your money, but you're just trying to get yourself active. It's also good. It could also bring you additional money. You have so much wealth of knowledge, or you would have so much wealth of knowledge by then, especially if you've exposed yourself. So it's very important that you give back to society through mentoring. You may go back, you have a few people, especially early in retirement, going back to work and doing partial employment. Unfortunately, in Ghana, it's not so popular, but if you have the opportunity, that is also another way to occupy yourself. And we have a lot of women that may be supporting their daughters or their sons or their kids, and that's all a way of keeping active. Religious activities, that's when some people become pastors and all sorts of things just to, become busy. And also education. This is where you see an old person, taking on a new course, doing a PhD or whatever it is. Times I don't understand, but I think now I understand better. So these are all things we have to take into consideration. In summary, When it comes to retirement planning, there are various stages. We have the accumulation and transition and decumulation stages. And all these stages, there are things that we can control and things that we cannot control. With the things that we cannot control, it's just an issue of prayer that things will just work for you. And some of these things are returns on assets. People like returns in Ghana. Please, it's not controlled by any financial advisor. It's out of our control. Also, job security may not be under your control. You may have a little to play, but it's not totally under your control. Also, longevity, the